And checking on the war in Gaza, and for the first time, the Israeli army has acknowledged a high death toll, saying 24 soldiers were killed on Monday, the deadliest day for its forces since their ground operation began. Among the dead are 21 reservists who died in an explosion likely caused by mines that Israeli forces had placed in two buildings to demolish them. It's thought that a missile fired by Palestinian armed fighters hit a tank guarding the troops just beforehand. The IDF says it's investigating what actually happened. In the meantime, the IDF says it has encircled the city of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, part of a push that has resulted in intense fighting and bombardments in an area packed with civilians who have fled their homes in other parts of the territory. This comes a day after Israeli forces stormed a hospital and a place another under siege. The soldiers on Monday advanced for the first time into Al-Mawasi district near the Mediterranean coast, west of Khan Yunis, main city in southern Gaza. There, they stormed Al-Khair General Hospital and arrested medical staff. There has been no immediate word from Israel on the situation at the hospital. Let's get more on this as the VOA correspondent in Tel Aviv, Ricky Rosen, joins us now. Ricky, great to see you today. If you could give us an update on today's happenings. 24 is rather a large number of soldiers. How does the Israeli army feel about the number of deaths on its side?
Well, as you can imagine, there has been a lot of shock and grief. Both political and military leaders have vowed that this will only continue their resolve to keep fighting even harder. And they are currently starting an investigation of what happened because the two buildings that collapsed on the soldiers were already mined to be demolished. And there's a question of why, after the mines had been placed, there were still 21 soldiers inside these buildings. And the mines were apparently set off by the RPG fire coming from Hamas fighters outside the buildings.
I know the army says it'll definitely investigate the incident, but what is it hoping to find? Could it have been mutiny at most?
I don't think that there's a question of mutiny within the ranks of the Israeli army. They they're lamenting the fact that the fighting in southern Gaza, specifically in Khan Yunis, is even more difficult than it had been in the north, because the army basically forced about 1 million Palestinians to move south when they were fighting in the north. And therefore, now Khan Yunis is even more densely populated than it used to be. And it's filled with hundreds of miles of tunnels that the Hamas fighters are hiding in and popping out of in order to attack by surprise the Israeli troops.
And Ricky, for the Palestinian side, when the army, Israeli army mentions 24, that's just a fraction of a number of deaths that occur on the other side in Gaza during that ground invasion there. Does the Israeli government even acknowledge the death and destruction happening over in Gaza?
The Israeli government, I think, in order to keep the morale of the Israeli public, doesn't dwell on the destruction and the death that's going on among Gazan civilians. They stress the fact that the figures that are quoted by Hamas in Gaza include thousands of Hamas terrorists who've been killed by the army. And they keep on stressing that the civilian death toll is regrettable, but it's the fault of Hamas, which has chosen to fight within the civilian population and using civilians as human shields. And the army keeps on presenting photos as evidence and videos as evidence of rocket launchers that Hamas placed inside kindergartens, inside schools, inside mosques, tunnel entrances that are also coming out into children's bedrooms. And with that, they're trying to justify, in a way, the need to fight this war, despite the fact that civilians are being so hurt in such huge numbers.
And talking about civilians being hurt, I don't know, what's the justification for the arrest of a medical staff in one of the hospitals encircled in Khan Yunis? I believe it's Al Kaya General Hospital. I mean, what could a medical staff have done to be arrested? They're only trying to take care of people that have been hurt in the process of the invasion.
The army has justified or tried to explain these arrests by saying that there is collaboration going on between medical staff and Hamas fighters. And they did, in fact, prove this collaboration that did go on in the northern part of Gaza when they were fighting around Shifa Hospital. Several people who were captured admitted that Hamas was operating from within the hospital and underneath the hospital. And I think that people who've been arrested will be investigated by the army. It's not for sure that the charges are, in fact, true, that they were somehow collaborating with Hamas against the Israeli troops.
And Ricky, in any war situation, there will be casualties. You know, the people on ground, of course, for a situation like Ukraine and, of course, like Israel and Gaza, you have aid workers that are always caught up, you know, in the middle. They get killed, they get injured, and the UN says that 150 of its staff have been killed in Gaza. How does the Israeli army respond to this?
The Israeli army, I just did a story about the humanitarian crisis and the aid workers, and the Israeli army says that they have warned the aid workers where they are striking and where to avoid doing the distribution of aid, and that their coordination with the aid organizations is very exact, and so they regret the loss of life, but say that it's an unfortunate casualty of war, which they say they are trying to diminish the chances of innocent people and aid workers being killed.
All right, Ricky, must thank you for your time today, and please do keep safe.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the US and UK say they have conducted a fresh series of strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, with the Pentagon confirming strikes hit 8 targets, including an underground storage site and Houthi missile and surveillance capability. The Iran-backed Houthis have been targeting ships they say are linked to Israel and the West that travel through the important Red Sea trade route. The US and UK say they were trying to protect the free flow of commerce. A joint statement issued by the Pentagon confirmed an additional round of proportionate and necessary strikes against the Houthis. Well, the situation in Gaza is becoming more dire as the Israeli army expands its ground operations to Khan Yunis. The city of Rafah has become the nearest haven for the people in Gaza, many fleeing death and destruction. But even the situation in Rafah is becoming dire. There's no water, food, electricity, kitchens, or bathrooms in Rafah, increasing people's daily suffering. The UN has warned of the spread of diseases among the population. According to the UN, about 85% of the population of the Gaza Strip have become internally displaced. Nearly 1.2 million people have been registered in the 156 UN facilities across the Strip, including about 1 million registered in 99 shelters in the central and southern Gaza Strip. And protest against the Israeli war in Gaza continues to rise as well. Hundreds of pro-Palestinian activists took to the streets in Dallas, Texas to demand a ceasefire in the Strip. Many held flags, chanted slogans, and carried banners with various messages.
It's time for this to stop. It's not about a two-state solution. It's about peace, having people have their homes and their lives back, children, women, teenagers, innocent men. Israel has to end it. People are fed up. I'm fed up. I can barely pay my bills, and the U.S. government is sending money to Israel.
We're here to let our voices be known, to end the occupation of Israel. We are all fed up. We are tired of seeing all the images of all the dead children in Palestine. It's disgusting. In solidarity for Palestine, I am fasting every day. I will not eat until ceasefire has come to conclusion.
Meanwhile, the losses in Gaza go beyond the people living there, even UN employees, as we reported earlier, as highlighted by the UNGA President Dennis Francis, who said recently over 150 of the organization's staff members have been killed while carrying out a humanitarian mission there. Mr. Francis was speaking on the sidelines of the Non-Aligned Movement Summit in Uganda.
There was a decision made by Hamas, albeit not without provocation, of domination of Gaza for an extraordinarily long period of time. But there was a decision made by Hamas on October 7th. Let's avoid this carnage because it's self-destructive. No one wins. We all lose. We all lose a part of our humanity watching other human beings suffer. It was never intended that way. That has been dramatically demonstrated, particularly in relation to the war in Ukraine and to the war in Gaza, is the apparent incapacity of the United Nations Security Council, which has, under the Charter, primary responsibility for international peace and security. The incapacity of the Charter to act, to take the decisions that are necessary to be taken, that could politically alter the course of events. And the Security Council, because of deep divisions globally, geopolitical divisions, had not for a very long time been able to reach a decision, a consensus on Gaza.